All right, today we are diving into the absolutely incredible story of how India's foundational rulebook, its constitution, came to be. And let me tell you, it is a story of massive ambition, incredible vision, and just some masterful engineering. So picture this. You're a brand new independent nation. How on earth do you write a single rulebook for a place with such mind-boggling diversity, a super complex history, and huge dreams for the future? I mean, that was the challenge facing India. It was this massive question that needed an equally massive answer. And the answer came from this group, the Constituent Assembly. For nearly 3 years, 2 years, 11 months, and 18 days to be exact, these folks, led by absolute visionaries like Dr. Rajendra Prasad and Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, they debated, they argued, and they meticulously drafted the future of an entire nation. Just an absolutely monumental job. Okay, so let's get into it. What exactly is a constitution, and why was it so important for India to have one that was written down, every single detail? Think of it like the operating system or the source code for a country. It is the supreme law of the land, the one that everyone and everything else has to follow. It sets up the government, defines its powers, its limits, and, crucially, it lays out the rights and the duties of us, the citizens. Now, this is a really important point. The framers had a choice. They could have gone the route of a country like the UK, which has an unwritten constitution that just kind of evolved over centuries. But they didn't. They chose to create a single, concrete, written document. Why? Well, for a brand new nation with so much diversity, it provided clarity, it provided certainty, and it gave everyone a solid foundation to build on. And the result of all that work? Well, it's the longest written constitution on the planet. And that wasn't by accident. This elephantine size, as people sometimes call it, was totally necessary. They had to account for India's incredible diversity, deal with all sorts of historical complexities, and, this is really unique, they put the rules for both the central government and all the state governments into one single massive book. So you've got this giant blueprint. The question is, how was it designed? Well, the architects of the Constitution didn't just invent everything from thin air. They were smart. They looked all around the world for the best ideas they could find. You know, some people call the Indian Constitution a bag of borrowings, but honestly, that totally misses the genius of it. The framers were like brilliant architects. They studied what worked elsewhere and then expertly adapted it to fit India's needs. They took the parliamentary system from the UK, the idea of fundamental rights from the USA, and directive principles from Ireland. The real brilliance wasn't in the copying, it was in the customizing, in blending all these global ideas into something that was uniquely Indian. Okay, this next idea is maybe one of the most crucial design choices they made. A federal system with a unitary bias. That might sound a bit technical, but what it means is that power is divided up between the central government and the various state governments. But, and this is the important part, the central government was deliberately made stronger to make sure the country stayed united and whole. And you can really see how this delicate balance works here. On one hand, you've got your classic federal stuff, 2 levels of government, a clear division of who does what. But then, on the other hand, you have these really strong unitary or unifying features. A single constitution for everybody, a single citizenship, and a very powerful central government. It's all about managing diversity while keeping the nation strong and together. And right at the very heart of this entire blueprint, you have this. A guarantee of rights for every single citizen. These are the fundamental rights laid out in Part 3, things like the right to equality and the right to freedom. These aren't just nice suggestions. They are the absolute soul of the Constitution. They are legally enforceable limits on what the government can do. Now, any great blueprint has to have safeguards, right? Because we all know that power can be misused. So how does the Constitution make sure that the very government it creates doesn't get too powerful? Well, the answer lies in one really powerful guiding principle. And that principle is constitutionalism. So here's the key thing to remember. It's not enough to just have a constitution. A country is only practicing constitutionalism when the government is actually limited by that constitution. It's the idea that the rule of law is king, not the whims of any one person or group. So who's the referee? Who makes sure the rules are followed? That's where the judiciary comes in. The Constitution set up an independent judiciary, with the Supreme Court at the top. And they have this incredible power called judicial review. It means the courts can actually strike down a law passed by Parliament if it violates the Constitution. They are the ultimate guardians of the blueprint. The people who wrote this document were incredibly wise. They knew they couldn't predict the future. They knew India would change. So they designed the Constitution not as some dusty old relic, but as a living, breathing document that could evolve over time. So how does it live and breathe? Well, Article 368 lays out the process for changing or amending the Constitution. And it's not super easy. It takes a special majority in Parliament. And if you want to change something that affects the states, you need at least half of the states to agree too. This whole process lets the Constitution adapt, but it also protects its core ideas from being changed on a whim. And this creates another one of those brilliant blends. It's both rigid and flexible at the same time. It's rigid enough to be stable and prevent chaos, but it's flexible enough to adapt to new challenges and new ideas in society. It's designed to bend so it doesn't break. This quote from Justice H.R. Khanna just nails it, doesn't it? It perfectly captures the spirit of the whole thing. It was never meant to be the final word, but the start of an ongoing conversation between the past, the present, and the future of an entire nation. And that really leaves us with a final, big question to think about. If the Constitution is a living document, what comes next? As India keeps evolving, its Constitution is going to keep being debated and interpreted and changed. It's a living blueprint, and its next chapters are still waiting to be written.